this is the debut of my podcast. So I want you to stick around. There are so many problems. I had to cut off the introduction because I'm learning at this. I had to cut off the end because, again, you got it. I'm learning at this. I had a wonderful guest. His name is Matthew Montgomery, and we hashed it out about some Dynasty Dilemmas. You can find out what that is if you look at dynastyprosfootball.com. I'm going to give you a second to like and subscribe. Go. Okay. Thanks, and please enjoy the video. If you follow me on dynastyprosfootball.com, you'll see that we have a series of articles called Dynasty Dilemmas. It's where we take a player, we look at the pros and the cons, and figure out what to do with him in a dynasty league. So I'm going to go ahead and let Matt introduce himself, and then we'll get started.
Hey, man. My name is Matthew Montgomery. I do primarily IDP writing for the site footballguys.com. This is going to be my second season doing articles for them. I did mostly IDP. I'm in some roundtables that we do for some offensive stuff, and I'm really looking to get into more of the offensive side of the ball as well. So I appreciate you having me on.
No problem. Good. I'm glad you decided to be my first guest.
Oh,
right.
What you decided it, baby.
No, you're the first person that responded. Okay. So we're going to go ahead and kick things off with the first Dynasty Dilemma. We're going to be talking about Deebo Samuel. So I'm going to go ahead and have you present the argument for Deebo Samuel. What are you going to do with him in Dynasty, and why do you like him?
Okay, so I feel like we, as a community, are forgetting just how dominant Deebo Samuel was in 2021. Last season, I do feel like we need to address the fact that, yes, the numbers took a significant hit. But if you look at the 49ers as a whole, the 49ers had a very up and down tumultuous season. They went through three quarterbacks. Deebo Samuel is a position that primarily relies on consistent quarterback play. Jimmy G, for all the good and the bad that everybody talks about him, gave him the most consistent production, and he was around for 10 games before he got hurt. But before that, we had Trey Lance, who was still new to the NFL, still learning how to play in the NFL, and then obviously has the devastating injury, and now we are seeing as a third-string quarterback in the NFL. And then Brock Purdy was a rookie, an undrafted rookie who nobody really knew anything about, and he is also trying to find his footing in the game. So I feel like it's important to note that, look, Deebo had a great season when they had consistency at the quarterback position. When Deebo Samuel performed the best, the 49ers knew what they were getting week in and week out from their signal caller, from the leader of their offense. Now, it's also important Deebo stays in the same scheme that he stayed in since he started his career. Kyle Shanahan has an offense that is absolutely wonderful for fantasy weapons, and the 49ers are absolutely loaded with them. So defenses cannot key in on just Deebo Samuel. They have to respect the fact that Christian McCaffrey is there. They have to respect Brandon Ayuk, who I'm not so high on, but the guy's got talent. And George Kittle, who is, when he's healthy, one of the more dominant tight ends in the entire league. Deebo's versatility at the position also makes him one of the most, I think, the most dynamic players in the NFL. He can take the ball, whether it's on a carry, whether it's on a deep route, a short slant, whatever he has to do to get the ball. He is absolutely deadly when he has it. Last season, he led the league in yards after the catch, and it had almost 2/3 of his entire yard total after the catch. That's big play potential. That is when Deebo is open, when Deebo's got the ball in his hands and they're trying to bring him down. It's not just a one guy hit him and he's down. He's a very physical player. He doesn't go down just on one hit, immediate contact. He will take the ball as far as your defense is going to allow him to take it. And even then, sometimes it's not enough.
Yeah, I feel like Deebo's kind of the wide receiver counterpart to Christian McCaffrey. Christian McCaffrey is kind of like an undersized wide receiver playing in the running back position, and Deebo is kind of like an outsized running back playing in the wide receiver position. I think they're both kind of like similar in versatility, and you can do similar things with them, but in different aspects of the game. I like looking at it that way. He's like good Jonathan Mingo. No.
So another reason why I'm pretty big on Deebo, his value has taken a tremendous hit within the community. Not really. I mean, I get it. He's been consistently in that 800 to 1100, 1200 yards throughout his career, until that one pop year he had with the 1400 receiving yards and the additional 100 yards rushing, or the 300 yards rushing. I apologize. We need to buy the dip. Okay, he had a bad season. If this was a stock and it had a bad earnings report, but it's a credible stock, you've seen it do well before, buy it when you can. Get a hold of it while it's still at this price, because I believe Deebo bounces back quick. I think he bounces back effectively, and he has league-winning potential because the dip is having him go as low as he's gone probably since his rookie season.
All right. That's all fair. That's a good pros argument. All right. However, I'm gonna kind of counter that. The case that I have against Deebo is that right now his ADP in Dynasty is 24. So he's 24th as a wide receiver. So basically, what you're counting on if you're in a Dynasty startup is you're counting on Deebo producing like your the bottom tier of the second wide receivers. In redraft, he's going as the 17th ranked wide receiver and 38th overall. And I just don't see him living up to that production. Basically, what I'm looking at with that ADP is you're seeing Deebo's peak season that he had 2 years ago, and you're basically drafting him at that level. He has only had one season of production like that. He only had one game last year with a top 20 finish, and he's in an offense that spreads the ball around. There's no real kind of singular person that takes control in that offense, and he's kind of the fourth receiving option. I feel like unless they scheme plays for him specifically, Kittle will get the ball first, Ayuk will get the ball first, and McCaffrey is going to get the ball first. Then we're looking at Deebo. Fourth reads, midfield checkdowns, things like that. I just don't see that he's going to live up to that production, especially if you draft him in a startup or trade for him. I don't think that you're looking at somebody who's going to give you second wide receiver production.
Okay.
I was looking over some of the people that are ranked on Fantasy Pros behind him, and kind of made a list of people that I'd rather have. I'd rather bank on a big Jahan Dotson breakout this year. Previous to the DeAndre Hopkins signing, I would rather bank on Treylon Burks' second year breakout, Quentin Johnson in the second half of the season. I think I'd rather put stock in him, Zay Flowers, Calvin Ridley, Deontay Johnson, who's a 140 target guy, whether or not he scores touchdowns. Even George Pickens with his ADOT. I mean, he has like a 14.6 ADOT and should see, a better year as a second year player. And even Amari Cooper is there. Those are all guys that if I'm in a startup draft, I'm going to skip Deebo and put those other guys in my queue first.
Okay, so I want to address a couple of things with Deebo that you said here. So the top 20 finish, 100%. That there's no argument to be made that didn't happen, because you're right. However, Deebo missed 4 games last year and still had 800 total yards from scrimmage, missing 4 games, and had only 5 games last year where he finished with double-digit point production. As a wide receiver too, double-digit point production is, if that being a floor, is a wonderful point of emphasis to draft. Double-digit point production, he's not going to lose you the game. He may not always win you the game, but he's not going to lose you the game. And also the big play potential, he does have the potential to shift a game. Some of the receivers that you pointed out that are available after him, I believe, are after him for a reason. I will start with Treylon Burks. You have to factor in the fact that we have a defensive head coach in Tennessee with a less than stellar quarterback in Ryan Tannehill and on a run-first offense with a rough offensive line, to say the least. I'm not sure if you guys are seeing any of the reports coming out of their training camp about the line being bad. So I don't believe that Treylon Burks has that type of potential. I'm also a little bit of a fade on some of the rookies there. Zay Flowers is dependent upon Lamar Jackson truly being that 4,000, 5,000, or 6,000 yard passer he wants to be. And there are viable options around him as well. Quentin Johnston is going to come in as the wide receiver 3 for the Chargers. Zay Flowers being the wide receiver 3 for the Ravens. I would take wide receiver 1 in a Shanahan offense over wide receiver 3 as in any other offense. And it may be bold to say he's wide receiver 1 because I know they have Ayuk, who plays more of a traditional wide receiver role, and Deebo being the H-back or whatever fancy football term you want to put into there. But the reality is Deebo moves around the field because they want to get him involved in the offense. And we have seen when Deebo is successfully and effectively used in an offense, it works. Last season, he had 94 targets. The season that he had the breakout year, he had 120. Okay, so he did not get the volume, but he missed 4 games. The rushing attempts, I also don't think that we need to eliminate the human factor of this. He was in a weird contract situation. Are they going to pay him like a running back? Are they going to pay him like a receiver? What's going to happen? I believe until that situation had truly got mended, that he may not have been going all out into that. Because if he's going to get that running back market, which we are seeing now is even more tumultuous than it was at the time this discussion was going on, versus the wide receiver market, which just seems to be growing each season, I don't know if I would put my body into those situations that he does. He's a very physical player. Physical players like him will break down. I don't believe he's broken down yet, but I do believe that for his long-term viability, last season may have been a wake-up call for the entire 49ers organization saying, what are we going to do? How are we going to get quarterback effectively figured out? And what do we do with Deebo Samuel? I think those were 2 things that their offense had to address last season. And I think that this season, both of them are in place. Deebo has signed. Everything is good. Happy, and everybody loves each other. And Brock Purdy, maybe even Sam Darnold. I don't know what's all going on there, but Brock Purdy seems to be the established leader there. So we'll see. I like stability. I think Deebo will do well with stability. And I think that offense will be – he won't be the only one in that offense. I think that offense takes a giant leap forward this year with stability, but I do believe that he will be the person that will recognize has the most to gain from that stability.
Now, you say that, counselor, but what I hear is you're willing to invest in somebody who's going to take time off to protect himself over the good of his team. Sorry.
Oh, yeah. Well, hey, man, are you a Lamar Jackson fan?
No, I'm kidding. All right. No, those are all really good points. Okay. So potentially you have, say, Terry McLaurin in your roster, and he comes up with turf toe. Or you have Jerry Jeudy, and he rips his hamstring off the bone, and he's going to be out for 6 weeks.
That was terrible.
You've got a hole at what you've been looking at as your second wide receiver, your third flex. You target Deebo because of the dip. What are you offering for him?
Well, I think it depends on your league format. Traditional redraft PPR league, I would probably look to trade a depth position. You're talking dynasty here. Dynasty. So strictly in dynasty, I think a mid-round pick straight up is fair for him. I think a lot of what comes with Deebo is the ability for the big play. And you have to factor in that doesn't happen. That doesn't always happen. Okay. You can't say, okay, every week he's going to have a 70-yard rushing touchdown, or every week he's going to have 5 catches for 115 yards. Okay. That being said, his floor, which we have established, can be in that 10 to 14 range, I believe. That is worth a mid-round pick. If you were to pick a Deebo Samuel in the 3rd round of your dynasty draft, you would be thrilled. If you were to pick a Deebo Samuel in the 2nd round, you may have been hoping for that cornerstone player, but you are not going to be upset with a Deebo Samuel. Now, I don't believe you'll get a 2nd-round pick for Deebo Samuel. I personally was I have a couple, I'm in an inordinate amount of leagues and a lot of variety of dynasty leagues. And I actually went through a Deebo crisis trying to trade him because the market is so volatile with him. But I did move him, and I felt like I could have got more, and I moved him for a 3 and a player. And I put it on X.com, formerly known as Twitter, and was tomatoes thrown at me like, you sold him too low. So, but a week prior, I had put a similar bulletin out. What do you think Deebo's value is? And it came back as like indiscriminate or not available right now. And it was one of those things where I don't think anybody knows what to do with Deebo Samuel. And I think when you have a player that is that polarizing within this community, I like to have those guys because there's something there. If he didn't have the ability to break out, it wouldn't be a discussion. The fact that there is a true argument for what he brings to your team or what value he brings to your roster, but nobody can identify what, there's something there. And I would rather invest in that as the player than to give up or get a pick compensation where it's a dart throw anyway, and you got to make sure you pick the right guy.
Right. So on Fantasy Pros, he's a fifth rounder, 50th ADP in Dynasty startups. So that's kind of where he would slot in, is like if you are, depending on your build, if it's a super flex league, if you have another wide receiver already, if you have another couple wide receivers, say you're doing single quarterback, zero RB build, he's definitely like right there for you. And like you said with the dip, he probably is going to fall a little bit, according to ADP too, because it's so up in the air. It's so like, well, it's kind of, I analogize it to pitchers in baseball. Once they hit a certain level with their fastball, the coaches and the pitching coaching staff knows he can hit that again. We just need to be able to get it more consistently out of him.
Exactly.
So you're looking at the same thing with Deebo and saying he has the ceiling to get there. It's just a matter of I'm investing in his ability to be able to do that this year.
I think I like how you're saying this, but I would like to put in there that I'm banking on the 49ers being a stout team in a weak NFC. And I think that when they become the team that I think everybody's kind of been waiting for them to become since the Garoppolo overthrow in the Super Bowl, everybody is kind of like, okay, this 49ers team is like right on the cusp of something great. But it always feels like they have the weirdest injuries. Something catastrophic happens to this team every season.
What are you talking about?
Yeah. So I'm banking on the fact that it's not going to happen a fourth year in a row, that they're going to have something come up, that there's going to be stability with a offensive play caller who likes Deebo in his offense, regardless of position.
So what you're saying is that there's going to be consistency at the quarterback position. Brock Purdy for 18 games. That's just going to help everything streamline into we can deploy Deebo as we want to deploy Deebo.
Exactly.
Okay. I want to kind of circle back around just to kind of like finish this out. The Treylon Burks thing, I understand that he's in a much, much lower production offense in Tennessee. The point that I was making there was that he is, before the DeAndre Hopkins trade, he would have been much more a focus of the passing offense than Deebo would be in an offense as talented as the 49ers is. They have so many options that it's hard for one person to kind of like, they're going to fall. Somebody on the 49ers is going to fall into the most productive player on the team kind of by chance. But it's not like you can look at them similar to another team that only has like one receiving option and say, okay, that guy's going to get 150 targets and, you know, that's going to be his floor. So that's like kind of what I was hearing when I like Deebo's ceiling. I like him as a player, and I understand the potential of the 49ers offense because they're stacked. But I just think that kind of dilutes the field. George Kittle, I mean, he's top 3 tight end in the NFL, but one of the things that people look at is, well, C-Mac's going to take opportunities away. and Deebo's going to take opportunities away, and Ayuk's going to take opportunities away. And it kind of like you can make that argument with every single player on that team because they are so good. So, all right, I think I'm convinced I'm going to be buy. That's the buy Deebo this year. All right, all right.
Now I want to, hey, really quick, your points on the negative side of Deebo. I like the back and forth with this. You brought something up that I like, where the value that you could get with where his ADP is versus what you're going to get is right in that second round, third round range. So how far can he go? That's the risk with drafting or acquiring Deebo Samuel, is if he exceeds that, it wasn't a wasted pick, but it also wasn't a good pick. It was the expected pick.
Right.
If he has less than that, it's a wasted pick early in your drafts or early in or you probably gave up too much to get that production. I am just of the mindset that he will rebound from last season's disappointment.
And I am of the mindset that you're not a good fantasy football player if you're not able to rebound from a bad pick.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to the next one. All right. Our next Dynasty Dilemma is Cleveland Browns tight end David Njoku. All right. So not only am I an Njoku owner, which is why I would buy, but let's look at Njoku in a larger sense. If I can get my stupid computer to work with me. Okay. So tight end. Njoku is his ADP is at tight end 9, according to Fantasy Pros. In redraft, he's at the 82nd player overall, and again at the 9th tight end. That with that IDP, I understand that you're buying Njoku at ceiling. However, last season, his first with Deshaun Watson, in which Deshaun Watson didn't play the full season and develop that rapport, he had six top 10 finishes last season. He finishes the tight end 10. He only played in 14 games, and he's had 2 top 10 seasons in his career. So he's going to be playing with Watson for the full year, as long as they both stay healthy. And last year, he did have a top 10 finish. I believe it was his second year. But last year kind of considered his breakout year. It was the first time that people saw his production and thought, okay, I can count on him. Now, slotting in at that tight end 9 position, there aren't a whole lot of guys that I would kind of fade above him and say, oh, well, I'm going to wait on him and take Njoku. The only one I think that I would do that with is Kyle Pitts. After Njoku goes as the 9th or 10th tight end, the guys that are stacking up in terms of ADP are these rookie dart throws that are they're the pretty girl in the dress, the freshman girl in the pretty dress at the first dance. Everybody's looking at him. They're going, ooh, Luke Musgrave. I like his training camp production. Ooh, Dalton Kincaid, Sam Laporta, Michael Mayer. I love their draft capital. There is a thing to be said about late tight end breakouts. Tight ends, because they have 2 jobs to do rather than just catching the ball. It takes them a while to acclimate in the offense and kind of earn their targets. Njoku has done that, so we don't need to be waiting on him anymore. So I feel like in a startup draft, he's 27 years old. That's pretty close to around the time that tight ends start to normal, your average, your middle of the bell curve tight ends start to produce at a rosterable rate. I will say, and this is a tweet that I have pinned on my Twitter today, it is a new era of tight end. So kind of Darren Waller came in and didn't really block a whole lot. The Raiders played a lot of 12 personnel, and they had a blocking tight end, so they could move Waller off the line of scrimmage.
Say, if I'm not mistaken, he came in as a wide receiver.
Well, he was a wide receiver coming out, but he was moved to tight end by the Ravens. And then what the Raiders did was they took him and they started moving him around, so he wasn't a blocking tight end. I feel like this new era is where guys who are of that freakish size, like Kincaid, Laporta, Musgrave, those guys are going to come in and be lined up off the line of scrimmage. They're wide receivers. They're large wide receivers to be covered by linebackers. They're too fast for linebackers, and they're too big for defensive backs, and that kind of creates nice matchup elements for them. Njoku's there. These kids, I think, coming into this 2023 season, they are going to have better seasons than your typical tight ends. But I know what I have in Njoku. In Njoku, I know that he's going to give me that right away. There's not going to be any breaking in period, and he's had another offseason to be able to build that rapport with Watson. He's an incredible red zone target, just a huge man, and I'm grabbing him in 5th round, 6th round. I normally in redraft, I'll wait until the last round of the draft to take a tight end. But in Dynasty with Njoku, I know that I can get at least the next 2 or 3 good years out of him while I'm waiting for my younger tight ends that I got in my rookie draft to kind of come to fruition. And I heard a man I respect, the FF Mad Scientist today. He made a quote. He has a quote about Dynasty, and at some point you need to have the veterans that it takes to win. You can't completely rebuild every year. You have to be able to go out and get somebody who is a little bit older when he's there, rather than just consistently rebuild with rookies in your rookie draft and trade assets away. It was a lesson for me, because that's kind of what I tend to do in Dynasty, is go for the shiny new package and look at age and just be like, oh, I don't want that. But at a certain point, you need to put all that production together to win. And I feel like Njoku is going to give you that this year. And so I'm pretty high on him. I'm looking for him to have a pretty good year.
Okay, well then I'm sorry to be the one to burst your bubble here, but I am of the opposite opinion. For one, I liken him. He is like the Gabe Davis of tight ends. Everybody was all giddy that Gabe Davis was going to be the next big thing because Josh Allen had the breakout year and Diggs was the established number 1 receiver. And then he shocks the fantasy world with a crazy touchdown week 1. Everybody's like, here it is. I've been telling you, hope you got on the bandwagon now. And then it was just kind of meh. And I feel like Njoku every season sets us up for that meh. He is a physically imposing player. He jumps through the screen. He's 6'4", over 235 pounds of probably just straight muscle. There's probably not a single % of body fat on that body. He is a physically dominant player on the field. So he's got everything you want. He's got an established quarterback who we've seen do well when he was at his peak. He's got the second year in the offense, right? This will actually be Njoku's, I think, 7th year playing, 6th or 7th year. The problem I have, though, is kind of the opposite opinion that you think of the same stat. You said at this point in time, in the 27-year-old range is when he will break out. I agree that tight ends take a little bit longer to show us who they are than the average player, like a wide receiver who's drafted in the 1st round, like a Jamar Chase or a Justin Jefferson, that immediately impact the game. But I don't see a 600-yard, 4-touchdown year as a breakout. I think that's probably what you're going to get as far as his ceiling. And he's done that twice. He's had 2 600-yard seasons and 2 4-touchdown, or he's had actually 4 4-touchdown seasons, but that is his peak. Both of those numbers. I feel like I'm just waiting for when is it going to happen? When is Njoku going to show the league that he's one of the better players? And I just don't see that. 2017, his rookie year, he burst onto the scene with 300 yards, 4 touchdowns. Not bad. 2018, he had even better year, 600 yards, 4 touchdowns. So it's like, okay, here we go. We're going to get that amp up. And then it just never went past that. That was the highest we got. But he is and he's the 9th tight end. And tight end is sort of a weird position right now in the NFL. It's like you said, it's almost like we're going through a transition of, hey, you have to do both, to almost now with the way the rules are in the league. It's almost like, hey, just make sure you can run routes effectively. And we're going to find you the ball. Players like Kyle Pitts are coming into the league. Players like Travis Kelce are revitalizing the game. And even Gronk, back when he was dominating the tight end position, really showed us that, like, look, Gronk's an outlier, but say what you want. When you have a guy that can, like you said, is too big for the defensive backs to guard, but too fast for the linebackers to guard, that is a mismatch that can be exploited every week, regardless of team, just because of the archetype of the positions that are set to guard that player. But I don't believe Njoku has shown us enough to get that 9th tight end spot. Okay, so yes, if the ceiling is 9, that is not a ceiling that I am comfortable drafting or acquiring. You in redraft leagues, you can actually wait a few rounds and probably get Okonkwo, who is the same size type and will be the 2nd year in his offense. It's funny, this is turning into a Titans podcast, but he's in an offense that'll be a little bit more play closer to the line of scrimmage. They do have credible outside threats now, so they won't be able to just load the box on Derrick Henry because they have Hopkins and they have Burks, and I am a fan of Burks. But I think that Tannehill is a check down guy. Tannehill is a poor man's Kirk Cousins. Okay, it's the same thing. He's going to check down. He's not going to go too far. All that being said, you're going to get that same level of production from a guy like that many rounds later. Njoku has an opportunity to really disappoint. Plus, I feel like that offense is going to run through Nick Chubb until otherwise noted. I think that offense is going to be heavily run first because he has proven that he is honestly the most consistent running back in the NFL probably over the last 2 to 3 years, and he probably gets the least amount of love from the community as being like a no doubt running back 1. Like, nobody really ever talks about him just because it's like, hey, he's good. It's Nick Chubb. Now let's move on to the next question. Yeah, he's good. You want to draft him wherever you can get him. But when you have an offense that's based around a player like that, that box is going to start getting closer to the line of scrimmage. And I think that's part of the reason why Njoku doesn't do as well, is the defenses are scheming closer to the line to not be burned by Nick Chubb. And I think players like Amari Cooper benefit more from the Deshaun Watson quarterback play in that regard than the tight end who's having to catch balls amongst a more crowded middle of the field or a more crowded line of scrimmage. Finally, he's never really been that tight end 1, or at least in my eyes, he's never been that guy who's going to win you the game. Deshaun Watson came back week 10, week 8 or 10 last year? I don't remember off the top of my head. He was suspended about half of the season, right? When he came back, Njoku only had 2 double-digit weeks, and he had 3 weeks of 5 or less. That's a red flag. That's a big red flag for me.
He was also banged up in that time.
That's fair. That's fair enough. Nobody finishes the season healthy, but a player of his size and his physical stature at his physical position, I need to see a little bit more consistency down the stretch, especially in that fantasy playoffs.
Yeah, I will say in Njoku's defense that he has had some of the worst quarterback luck since he came into the league.
Without question.
And then on top of that, last year only getting a partial season with Watson. I think he's going to have a better year than this year, than a more consistent year this year than he did last year. And when you brought up the stats, 600 something yards, 4 touchdowns, that was still good enough for him to finish as the tight end 10 last year. If he has at least some minimal level of positive touchdown regression, just because the offense is more productive, just because everybody is kind of stacking the line and he can like get up the seam and into the middle of the field in the second level because everybody's focused on Chubb. Just a little positive touchdown regression, and I think he has a better year than last year.
And one more thing that I think is a detriment to him, he plays in arguably one of the tougher defensive divisions in the entire NFL. Twice a year he's going to go against Roquan Smith. Twice a year he's going to go against the Steelers, who have Minka Fitzpatrick, TJ Watt, and twice a year he's going to go against the Bengals defense that has been pretty heavily underrated, and the defensive coordinator is actually getting head coaching interviews. So 6 games a year, he's going against tough defenses in as about as an old school of a division as you're going to get.
And he has been doing that, and he's got 2 top 10 tight end finishes to show for it, including the 6 games that he had as a tight end 10 or better last year.
I just feel like he's all sizzle, no steak.
Sure.
You're gonna look at him on the field and you're gonna be like, wow, this guy's good. And then you look at him on the paper and you see all of his stats and you're like, man, there's real opportunity. But then he just falls flat too consistently.
So I think one direction that this discussion is going kind of points to the tight end position, which I've hated in fantasy football for so long that I've done no tight end leagues before.
Oh man.
I've done leagues where you could have a tight end, but it's a flex only. There's no tight end requirement, right? So you could roster one. You don't need to, just because even the good ones are so inconsistent. In redraft for the last, 20, 25 years, I have been wait until the last round to get a tight end. And then, I'm not going to waste any of my draft cash to get a tight end when I know I can stream based on matchups, and I'm going to have as many top 10 finishes doing that as if I drafted somebody.
If you're waiting until the last round drafting that tight end, you're getting Njoku, right?
Sure.
I'm just kidding.
Njoku's going before then. Let's see. Who are some of the guys that I've been taking this year after or at the end? Typically, Musgrave is available. I've got so much of him.
I'm glad you're bringing up some of the young guys because I agree with you. I think tight end has been such a weird position the last few years, but there was a huge influx of talent in this draft. And that only muddies the water a little bit because not all of them are going to pop. Maybe 1 or 2 of them are going to pop. But I think that if he stays consistent and we get 2 new fresh blood into those rankings, suddenly you look at Njoku and you're like, man, I'd almost rather have that Musgrave guy. He's looking like, or man, I'd really like that. I like how they use Michael Mayer in the Vegas offense. Right. So I just think that he has to really show us something because, again, you're absolutely right. His quarterback play, to his credit, the fact that he has still just put his head down and gone to work every day sometimes as a Cleveland Brown is probably tough. But he's got the best quarterback, one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL. People forget how good Deshaun Watson was prior to the controversy. So if Deshaun Watson is even an inkling of what he was, I could have egg on my face and you could post this clip all over the internet to live in infamy. But I don't see Deshaun Watson going back to that, and I also don't see Njoku doing anything more than those 2 to 3 seasons of 400, 600 yards that we've seen.
Well, that's the volatility of the position, I think. So, with that said, I'm going to hold if I have him rostered. I'm not really going to target him if I'm in need of a tight end, just because of the volatility. I'll go ahead and try and get somebody off waivers. Hayden Hurst, if he's available. Tyler Higbee, if he's available. I don't think I'd go as far as Gerald Everett. I think I'd make a trade before then. Logan Thomas, I might take a chance on.
I've been so up and down with Logan Thomas myself.
I liken him to Njoku. Their ability is there. It's just
put it together for me.
They're ever going to put it all together. There's really only three or 4 guys in this league that
I love the hold assessment that you have. Love the hold assessment.
Well, I have him, so I'm not.
So it's funny because I feel like he's a player that I don't have a lot of him in leagues, partially because I do have I have a bias. I'm a Bengals fan, so full disclosure, maybe this is the Bengal bias coming out, but I've just never really had him. But I've always been around people or have been in leagues where I just feel like people hold him way too long, and I've never understood. He feels like a frustrating player to have on your team.
He is, but I mean, I have this. So this year on my home league, I have Njoku as my starter. I have Higby and I have Likely. I'm just waiting for Likely's athletic profile to get out from Mark Andrews'
I'm a
shadow.
huge Andrews guy and likely scares the bejesus out of me.
Right. I mean, he's going to be used, but he's not going to be like the primary tight end. And until he gets to that level, which could take 3 or 4 years, maybe a fifth year extension, maybe Andrews leaving, something like that. He's always going to be potential. A catastrophic injury to Andrews, yeah, he's going to kind of step up and do well.
And back to
Higby,
your
I
hold
think.
assessment, Njoku's the perfect player at this point in time to hold. We
Yeah.
kind of went back and forth prior to the show about saying, okay, pick a guy you're down on, pick a guy you're good on. Okay. It wasn't like pick a guy that we're on the fence on. I would probably lean more on the fence with Njoku, but if I were tipping over the fence, it'd be on the negative side. But he is a prime candidate for it. Just wait and see what you have in Dynasty. Don't, unless you get an offer that's just you have to take, maybe listen to every offer that comes in, but don't offer him out because somebody will take him. And you might not like the outcome. So a hold is more of a better designation for Njoku because of your astute points, but also because I just really think that he can put it together. We just haven't seen it. And I have a 7-year history of trends to look at, and I'm just like, I'm not sold.
So it's kind of similar to Deebo in that he's done it before and he can do it. But is it going to happen? Let's invest in it or let's not invest in it, kind of thing. So
Exactly.
that's fun. That's what I like about this format is that, I mean, I'm not necessarily like all in on Njoku and I'm not necessarily out on Deebo. It's just I'm gonna present the counter argument. Okay, all right.
Love that,
So
man.
we're about to finish up. So you guys, that's what I was talking about. So we are towards the end. I have one more segment left to do with Matthew, and I'm gonna go ahead and get that recorded and stuck on the end of this. So if you're watching right now, like and subscribe, and then here's Matt and I again. Yay! Matt, I asked you to put together power rankings for me. I gave you a bunch of topics to choose from, and you chose top 5 fast food, must have a drive-through. So to get it started, you have honorable mention Skyline Chili, which I've never had Skyline Chili with spaghetti and cheese. I know it's a very polarizing food
Oh yeah.
stuff.
There's nothing quite like Cincinnati chili. So I'm from Cincinnati. I lived in Cincinnati most of my life. So you either like it or you don't. I say I'm more of a Gold Star chili fan, which is actually the Skyline chili rival. So
Okay.
that will turn some heads around the Cincinnati area. But Skyline chili, just because it's more universally known. You ever in the Cincinnati area or anywhere that has a Skyline, you got to try it. It's just different. Cheese conies, chili cheese fries. I mean, the spaghetti everybody always makes fun of. It is good. And why I liked Skyline in this particular case, it was always my after sporting event or after concert thing because it was usually open 2 or 3 in the morning. That was pre-COVID. Things have changed since then, but it was always the late night spot.
Yeah.
Money.
We have a place that we used to go to every time we'd go to a Raiders game. On the way back, we'd hit this place called Nation's Giant Hamburger, and it was a diner style burger with the best American cheese, and they put an egg on it for you, and
Ooh.
the post game ritual. I totally get it. Now here's a question, 2 questions. Number one, Skyline Chili, does it have cinnamon in it? Because I've heard that.
Yes, I believe
Okay.
so.
And number two, do you go canned or do you just have to have it live?
Well, I do canned at home. So I think it tastes the same personally, but you got to have the whole authentic experience because they have almost like a bar, I would say, where they make everything like directly right in front of you, and you watching them kind of whip it all up. It's not like they have a separate kitchen. I mean, they do have a separate kitchen, but a lot of, or at least the one I'm referring to, has like a live person in front of you, kind of scooping it out and doing it for you. You kind of see it all. It's very
But
interesting.
if I want to try it, and I have a ton of friends in Ohio that I need to go visit, and I'd love to see some football in Ohio. I'm actually targeting the fantasy football convention next year,
Cool.
so that might be a possibility. I know Akron and Canton are far from Cincinnati, but
There should be one out that way.
But if I wanted to order some cans off of Amazon, shred my own cheese and make some spaghetti, I
Yeah,
could
it'll
pretty
work.
much. Okay.
You'll get the
All right.
authenticity.
Well, let's get into the ranking. All right, Matt. So number 5 on here, you have Raising Cane's. Talk to me about Raising Cane's.
Yeah, so Raising Cane's, for those that don't have one in their area, simple menu, 4 menu items, all chicken tenders, different varieties, different quantities, different ways to eat it. But at the end of the day, it's a chicken tender. I'm a sucker for a good pun. You go through that drive-through and it's chicken, chicken. What combo you picking? I don't know why. That just kind of makes me laugh when you go through a drive-through instead of the old mundane. What can I get for you? But also the sauce is a very underrated sauce. As far it's almost like a honey mustard barbecue mix type of thing. It's like a more southwesty version of Chick-fil-A sauce, which will be mentioned here later in this list. Spoiler alert.
Ooh, spoil it. Yeah, it's got a similar business model to In and Out, where it's like you get in there, you get your choice of a couple things, and then you're out. And yeah, so there was a lot of hubbub about Raising Cane's is coming. They were proliferating around the United States. We finally got one in my town, and I was picking up something else, and Raising Cane's was across the street. The lines had gone because it had been a couple months, and I was skeptical, and I went in and I ordered, just like a simple like 3-piece or something. Got it home. And my first bite, I was like, this is legit.
Yeah.
I can tell. The
Yep.
chicken was good. It was flavorful. The brine that they use or marinade or whatever was good, and the sauce was like that's a next level dipping sauce for chicken tenders. All right, so number 4, you spoiled it. Chick-fil-A.
Yeah, I mean, as far as chicken goes, you can't beat Chick-fil-A. It's everything about it. It's consistent every time. Service is fantastic. The whole my pleasure mentality. I mean, it's wonderful. I've never had a bad experience at Chick-fil-A either, as far as food quality goes. I mean, honestly, with service either, but you got to be willing to wait. Sometimes you got to wait a little bit on Chick-fil-A, but it is so worth the wait, whether you're getting tenders or whether you're getting nuggets, which are very good nuggets, or the sandwich, or even their breakfast. I'm not sure if anybody's had Chick-fil-A breakfast, but it's a lot in the morning, so you better bring an empty stomach, but it is magnifique.
Magnifique. All right, number 3, you've got Burger King, which I'm sure is a surprise to a lot of people.
Yeah, so I don't know. There's just something about the whole flame broiled thing. I am a burger fan. I love burgers. You're going to see that here in the upcoming top 2. But as far as a fast food burger goes, if you're wanting one of those fancy ones, you're wanting one of that big, whether it's I don't know what they call them, like the King, the BK King or whatever. It's just there's something about Burger King. When you got burger in the name, you better come with a good burger. And I've never had a bad burger there. Plus, I feel like you get a better version of a grilled at home burger when you go to Burger King. Now you got to get it when it's good though. Obviously all of these experiences come and go. If you're going to a Burger King at 11:30 at night, I mean, come on, you know what you're going to get. But if you're going there that prime lunch or dinner time when everything's kind of firing on all cylinders and you're getting that fresh burger, that's a pretty good fast food burger.
Okay, so Matt, I'm a little bit older than you, and I remember back in the 80s, early 90s, the Whopper, or as I like to call it, the Whopper, that was the legit fast food burger. The flame broiled, you were right. The onions that they put on it, I was not really a big onion guy when I was young. And then the mayonnaise, like something about all of the melding of the Burger King flavors were there. And then they changed the bun, and the bun is like it falls apart now. I feel like it didn't used to be like that, but still, Burger King number 3. All right, number 2, and I'm gonna say that your number 2 and number 1 are kind of controversial, and I'm gonna throw in an In and Out there. I'm not sure about the availability of In and Out or Whataburger in your space,
Not at all.
but both of those are damn good. I just want to throw that out there. But your number 2 is Wendy's.
Yeah. So to caveat off that, I've had In-N-Out one time and I've been chasing that high ever since. So if there was one out my way, very, very likely would have made this list, but there's not. And I've only had it the one time, and maybe it's just a nostalgic feeling is why I feel that way. So you never know. But Wendy's at number 2. I feel like the versatility of that menu is very good. You got a taste for pretty much everyone, whether you're going to get one of those crazy salads, or you're going to get a wrap, or you're going to go with a traditional yet untraditional square burger. And then I also feel like when they like do new market stuff, you know how all those restaurants basically will put out marketing stuff. It's all kind of a similar item. I feel like Wendy's, when they have those limited time offer things, they're always something very unique. And I like trying new things. So I just think when you take risks like that, that's just something that I respect. So I'm always going to try one of those fancy ones like the pretzel bun or the honey mustard wrap of what's like, okay, I'll try it. It's Wendy's.
The pretzel bun is good.
Yeah.
And they just dropped a loaded nacho burger, which I'm
Ooh.
meaning to try. Yeah, Wendy's is pretty good. And I forgot what I was going to say. Oh yeah, and Wendy's does have the best flavored patty of the major chains.
Oh, that's bold.
Yeah, I love it. Now it comes close to In-N-Out and Whataburger, and I really envy the people of Texas who live near an In-N-Out and a Whataburger,
Man.
because the rest of us get one or none, but people in Texas get both.
Some guys get it all.
Yeah, right. But the trade-off is they have to live in Texas. Okay, not Dallas is nice.
The California bias is rubbing off into the pod.
Oh, it's very large. All right, and to finish off, your number one fast food must have a drive-through. I feel like the whole rest of the world agrees with you. McDonald's.
It is the quintessential fast food experience. So, full disclosure, first job I ever had, worked my way up and ran restaurants for a while. So, definitely a huge bias. Okay. Worked for the company that their namesake invented the fillet of fish. So, huge deal. Big long-term history here with me with McDonald's. But if I'm pulling back the curtain a little bit and I'm just going to be the observer, the person that goes through the drive-through, what more do you want out of a drive-through? The sign says it all. Billions and billions served. That's with a B, if you didn't hear me correctly. Okay. That's a lot of people. And it's been going on since the 60s. They invented the drive-through. They continually improve upon the same items. So they don't change what they are. They bring in some of the new hit stuff. And I saw a news article the other day. They're bringing in corn, which I'm not 100% sure what that's about, but best fries in the game. Chicken nuggets are very unique, but I like them. And then who doesn't like the way that they make their burgers? Who doesn't like that burger taste? Okay. Maybe it's not as fancy as the Burger King one that we just described. Maybe it's not as unique as the square patty of Wendy's, but it is the example burger where if aliens were to come down and they said, show us your best fast food burger, I'm giving you McDonald's, because I know that universally everyone kind of agrees. Yeah, it's pretty good.
Now, I I have a couple McDonald's takes. Number one, fries well done with extra salt. Just stay clear everything. Number two, there's something about McDonald's where if I'm craving a burger in general, I have a lot of choices, right? I can make my own. I can go to Burger King, Wendy's, McDonald's, Carl's Jr., whatever, In-N-Out. But when I'm craving McDonald's, I'm craving McDonald's. I don't get like, oh, I have a craving for any other place. It's very specific, and my order is always the same, and it can only be that, right?
And don't undersell the way that their soft drinks hit. I mean, that
Oh,
they
the
have
Coke.
that spicy, like it's just gonna hit you right in the mouth, but it's a good hit. You know what I mean? It's not just like
Yeah.
cracking open a Coke or cracking open a Sprite. I mean, it is leaving you with some feelings. And very, very underrated breakfast. Very underrated
Yes.
breakfast. I would argue they
I've
created the whole 10:30 breakfast end stigma that is within the world.
I feel like I would argue that it's not underrated. I feel like it's perfectly rated, because if you talk to anybody, Egg McMuffins and McGriddles, and even like the large breakfast, everybody who knows.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Now,
So yep, there are a couple biases on this list. Mickey D's, I worked there. Skyline, I'm a Cincy guy, and honestly, who doesn't like chicken? So Chick-fil-A and Raising Cane's on there too. Come on.
There you go. And this is coming from a man in Ohio where they test market all the fast food stuff before
Oh, yeah.
anybody else gets
If
it.
you can't tell, I may participate in some of that.
The only quibbles that I would have are that you're basically limited to chicken and burgers, and I need to throw a Taco Bell in there. Um, I don't know if you have it out in Ohio, but we have a place called El Pollo Loco that is a chicken place, but it's roasted chicken. It's not fried chicken. And then they do tacos and everything on top of that, and it's super, super good. But they're your power rankings, and it's not a draft or anything. So, you get the 101, 102, 103, 104, 105, 106, and you got it. So, Matt, I want to thank you very much for being my guest. This is going to be the first public drop. So you are the first guest on my first podcast.
Let's
I've
go.
had so many problems. There's a couple cut-ins that our viewers have had to deal with. One
Change
at
of
the beginning.
outfit.
We're wearing different clothes, different hats. But I thank you so much, and I'm definitely going to have you on again if you will come back and let everybody know where they can find you, where they can find your writing, where they can get in touch with Matt Montgomery.
Yeah, so I appreciate being the first guest on here. I do not believe in the sentiment first is the worst, second is the best, so keep that in mind. I write for footballguys.com. I do primarily IDP, but I do dabble in some offense too, so I appreciate this podcast allowing me to kind of get some more offense out there. Primarily use X or twitter.com at MattMontyFF. Just want to do more stuff like this, more pods. I want to do some more writing. And most importantly, I want to talk ball. That's what we're here to do. This is all fun. It's just a couple of bearded dudes with glasses talking ball. And that's about how I live my life, to the dismay of my fiance, who I have told I'm going in the cave. I will see you in February. So let's do this. It could be a fun season and looking forward to many more of these.
All right. And thank you very much. Thank you for coming into the Fantasy Burn, and we'll see you later, everybody.
See you later, guys.
Thanks, Matt.